Good afternoon, everyone. This is Dr. Kamal Prasad Mohanty from Kalinga Institute of Social Sciences, deemed to be University, uh, Bhubaneswar, Odisha. Here, I feel privileged to and honored to discuss an important topic with all of you, and the topic is multiculturalism. So these are the
Really?
objectives to discuss. Before we comes to discuss the topic, these are the major objectives. We should at least understand what are the basic objectives of multiculturalism. Explain the meaning of multiculturalism to know various models of multiculturalism. Describe second wave of writing on multiculturalism, and finally analyze of the limitations of multiculturalism. And coming to the definition, or you can say the introduction of multiculturalism, cultural diversity is posing a challenge to states around the world as various governments are facing demands from cultural minorities for recognition, protection, and political autonomy, etc., within the territory of the state. Has been a rise of cultural diversity in various countries due to a number of factors like demise of communism in Eastern Europe, leading to demands of nationalism, rise in attraction of communitarian thinking in the 1980s, increase in Muslim immigrants to Western Europe in the 1970s, emergence of indigenous peoples movement demanding correction of historical injustices noted out to them, increased political activism of religious conservatives in the United States in the 1980s, and migration of people due to war or seeking better economic opportunities. These are the major factors of cultural diversity. I'll come to these points later on. Let us understand the term multiculturalism in details. So you see, the multiculturalism can understand with two different words. The first one is multi, means many or more, and the second one is culture, which can again describe with two different means, that is way of life and the set of beliefs and practices. Secondly, a marker of identity in which we can discuss about race, ethnicity, nationality, religion, and language. And when we talks about the origin of this concept called multiculturalism appeared in political theory in the 1970s and the 1980s, when it was used to denote a shift in public policy away from assimilation of ethnic minorities and immigrants towards integration and acceptance of diverse culture in countries like Canada and Australia. In the United States, the debate of multiculturalism started in the 1980s in the context of how the education system should respond to cultural diversity. The term, again, multiculturalism is used to describe a society in which different cultures can coexist. It signifies attempts to balance diversity against cohesion. Again, multiculturalism not only recognizes cultural diversity but also advocates that such differences should be respected and publicly apparent. It maintains respect for cultural differences and does not favor assimilation of minority culture into the dominant one. Instead of seeking a melting pot in which minority groups assimilate into the majority culture, multiculturalism uses metaphors like salad bowl or glorious mosaic, where the minorities can maintain their distinctiveness. There are differences among various thinkers on how this has to be achieved. Some argues that minority groups should be tolerated by learning them free from state interference, also called as politics of interference. Others argue that mere toleration of group differences falls short of treating the minority groups as equals, and there is a need for recognition and positive accommodation of minority groups practices through different sensitive policies. These are again the basic concept of multiculturalism. Multiculturalism seeks the inclusion of the views and contribution of diverse members of society while maintaining respect for their differences and withholding the demand for their assimilation into the dominant culture. The point is that whenever we talked about multiculturalism, particularly the concept of multiculturalism, and how its impact in different part of the globe, like Eastern Europe to United States. So these are the basic concept of multiculturalism. Coming to the aims of multiculturalism. Multiculturalism aims at minimizing discrimination of minority cultural community to promote the ideal of non-discrimination. Secondly, as more and more countries became democratic, they set aside discrimination based upon religion, gender, caste, race, etc. So these are the aims of multiculturalism. Coming to the types of multiculturalism. Eilert Setzer gives two types of multiculturalism. One is strong multiculturalism and another one is weak multiculturalism. So strong multiculturalism is centered on group identity and group rights, and it gives rights to the group over its members. This is called strong multiculturalism. The central problem for strong multiculturalism focuses on intra-group complexities and accommodation. The main focus is on how to harmonize individual rights with group rights. According to Andrew Hudo, there are three main models of multiculturalism, that is, the different types of multiculturalism, and these are liberal multiculturalism, pluralist multiculturalism, and cosmopolitan multiculturalism. We'll discuss one by one. We'll start with liberal multiculturalism. So, liberal multiculturalism commitment to freedom and toleration are two hallmarks of liberalism. Please try to understand. The two hallmarks of liberal multiculturalism, one is commitment to freedom and toleration, the second one. So these are the different or these are the two important hallmarks of liberal multiculturalism. Toleration is a willingness to allow existence and expression of rival views. Liberalism gives an individual the right to choose his or her beliefs, cultural practices, and way of life. This is the point what I highlighted in introductory part. Now coming to the second types, that is called pluralist multiculturalism. This theory of cultural diversity is based on value pluralism, an idea that there are many values which are equally correct and fundamental, although they may be in contradiction to each other. This is the second part. Coming to the third, that is called cosmopolitan multiculturalism, it celebrates diversity as each culture can learn from the other, and prospects for self-development are offered by a world of wider cultural opportunities and lifestyle choices. It endorses exploration of different cultural options from an individual's perspective. So these are the basic, or you can say these are the major types of multiculturalism which can discuss from this perspective. Now coming to the challenges, or you can say the limitations of the multiculturalism. You see, some progressive theories believes that multiculturalism fails to address the grievances of the disadvantaged sections of society. They say that the real problem of minority is not lack of cultural recognition, but their lack of economic power and social status, quote unquote, issue of class. By focusing on cultural distinctiveness, multiculturalism divides the people who want social reform and reduction in poverty. This in turn reduces support for welfare policies as the society is divided and forgets issues like poverty and that could unite them. Secondly, according to Amartya Sen, multiculturalism is based on solidarist theory. He argues that multiculturalism leads to mini, miniaturization of humanity as identity is associated with a single social group. It makes violence more likely as people identify with their own group and sometimes fail to recognize rights of other groups. Conservative and nationalist thinkers and hostility are accepted facts of life. People generally are drawn to others with whom they share their identity and they would distrust someone who is different in some ways of life. Nationalists, therefore, would like to limit immigration and assimilate the minority cultures to strengthen national identity instead of particular identities. The point is that why I focus these points in before you, that a number of drawbacks of multiculturalism have been highlighted by many experts. I give two examples like Amartya Sen and other theorists, the progressive theorists, and they mostly argue, in contrast to the group differentiated notion of equality. Please understand the notion of equality. Brent Berry, another important theorist, has advocated universal notion of equality, and he says that religious and cultural minorities should be ready to face the consequences of their practices and beliefs. Dear friends, please remember this is the vital point when we talk about multiculturalism, particularly the challenges towards multiculturalism. This is the part when we talk about the notions of equality. Similarly, when we see in the practices and beliefs in the same way as members of majority culture are held responsible for bearing the consequences of their beliefs. I had already discussed the notions of equality, how this is working. Now, again, the Brent Berry argues that special accommodation is justified for the people with disability as any disability limits a person's opportunity compared to others who do not suffer from disability. In contrast, religion and culture do not affect whether someone has an opportunity, although they may impact one's desire to take any opportunity or not. So these are the basic things what I want to highlight it before you about the challenges, or you can say the limitations of multiculturalism. Let us quickly sum up what we have already discussed in this topic. Cultural diversity like religion, linguistic, and racial continues to be a feature of many states around the world. In political theory, multiculturalism appeared in 1970s and 1980s in countries like Canada and Australia, which tried to move away from policies focusing on assimilation of ethnic minorities and immigrants towards integration and acceptance of diverse culture. Instead of seeking a melting pot in which all differences assimilate, multiculturalism stands for something like a salad bowl where the constituents retain their identity. It does not seek uniformity or standardization, but it tries to maintain heterogeneity. Multiculturalism stands for recognition and positive accommodation of minority group practices through different sensitive policies like exemption, assistance right, external rules, and internal rules. Please remember, these are the important points what I discussed with you, and we are summarizing what we have already learned in this chapter. Now, there are three main models of multiculturalism. A minute before, I have already discussed with you people the different models or the types of multiculturalism, and these are the liberal uh, multiculturalism, pluralist multiculturalism, and finally the cosmopolitan multiculturalism. Apart from that, we have also discussed the strong multiculturalism and weak multiculturalism, and it also tries to increase participation of the groups what were previously oppressed. The point is that the last point I will conclude here, that how multiculturalism tries to increase participation of the groups that were previously oppressed. So these are the different thoughts before you. So I hope I give some idea and I discussed some of my ideas with you. So thank you so much for your patience hearing, and thank you so much for your participation. Thank you all.